Thank you for tuning in to yet another edition of the AFC South Roundtable, powered by the BetUS Sportsbook. BetUS is hands down the place to go for this upcoming NFL season. Over-unders, money lines, all the way down to player props and anything you could imagine. The best thing is that they are matching 125% of your first 3 deposits all the way up to $2,000 the second that you sign up. I am talking the best promo on the face of the planet. Just go on ahead, hit that link in the description if you want to get in on the action early and get in the games. Please enjoy another episode of the AFC South Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another edition of the AFC South Roundtable. I sincerely hope that you tuned into our live stream this past Tuesday at 7 p.m. EST. We go live each and every single Tuesday to break down everything and anything that has to do with the AFC South. Now, I do want to tell everybody that last week's episode of quarterback rankings definitely ended up getting a little spicy, but I can almost promise you that today's episode is going to be even better. We had all of the panelists go through their top 4 wide receiver cores in the division. So we're going to make them walk through their rankings, explanation, and see what the rest of the panelists have to say. Let's go around the table, see how everyone is feeling right now. Starting off with Dalton, what you got?
Dude, I'm feeling so good, man. The Jaguars are going undefeated in the preseason. They're going to keep winning until September, October, November, December, all the way to the Super Bowl, okay? We're going to have a Super Bowl winner in the AFC South. You guys should all be blessed to have us here.
This is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Michael, how you doing?
Doing good, Dan. Good to be back on and have just a good discussion of football. And unfortunately, looks like UCF's in fine form in 99. So guess I got to knock them back down to earth.
What about you, Ruben? How you doing?
You know, UCF said there will be a Super Bowl champ in the AFC South, but that's going to be the Houston Texans, baby. We're doing good here in the H, man. Shout out to you guys.
And last but not least, our good friend Derek. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, even though I could say my team's the only one that hasn't won a preseason game yet, I just want to remind everyone, anyone who celebrates wins in the preseason, well, we know what kind of fans they are. It's all good.
This coming from the guy that puts up banners for everything in their stadium.
Those have been taken down, all right? Those have been taken down. All right? We get it around here.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy, man. It's August. We've had 2 shows, and Derek's just taking a beating, man. Like his face is as red as his shirt right now.
You know what, UCF? It's okay, dude. You know how last year you used to say that Ruben and I used to just tag team on you at the beginning of the round table? Well, yeah, it's my turn. It's okay. It's fine. I'll take it.
It's Derek's turn in season 2, and I'll tell you what. We might as well just start off with Derek's list. Derek, you submitted this gem right here. Okay, your wide receiver room rankings in the AFC South. Would you mind walking us through your reasoning behind all 4 placements?
Well, I mean, for number 1, I mean, I'll just go 1 to 4, might as well. I mean, for the Houston Texans, I mean, I was looking back at the depth chart again, and I find it amazing just how many wide receivers are actually on this roster that I like. It's not even just the 3-headed monster and Diggs, Collins, and Dell. But I mean, Robert Woods, who would be serviceable with any team out there. Noah Brown, we saw how good he was last year with CJ Stroud. That guy definitely can still ball. John Mechie, who, you know, some people are still wanting to see something out of. And Xavier Hutchinson had one of the better games in their first preseason game anyway. So, I mean, there's 7 freaking people deep at that wide receiver group. I mean, they got way too much overhaul. So they got way too much firepower there. That's why they're obviously number 1. Tennessee Titans, the reason I give them the nod at number 2 over Indianapolis, simply because, yes, their wide receivers are older, but we have seen Calvin Ridley perform at a really good level last year. I know that he had some drop issues, but we still aren't going to ignore the fact that he had 76 catches for nearly 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. And DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, he's older. He's not D-Hop from the Texans, but he still can definitely grab anything that he wants to, has some of the best hands in the game still. Tyler Boyd, you know, as a wide receiver 3 is a really solid option there. And I like the depth of the wide receiver group. They have Treylon Burks, who's still trying to come into his own. Nick Westbrook, is very serviceable. So they're pretty solid even in their depth. So I would give Tennessee at the 2. Indianapolis, I put at 3 because Michael Pittman at this point is a walking 100 catch guy at this point. He can get you that 1,200, 1,300 yards a season on a consistent basis. Josh Downs just set the rookie franchise record last year in receiving yards and receiving and reception. So he definitely is on the right track to a really great start to his career. Alec Pierce is a great deep threat, and Adonai Mitchell, who is a highly anticipated wide receiver recruit for the NFL this year. And then I'll put the Jags at number 4 only because they don't have a single wide receiver who has ever eclipsed 1,000 yards in their career. Gabe Davis was very close to it once.
Christian Kirk did it last year.
Did he actually though?
Yeah,
Because I'm pretty sure that I saw the numbers that he didn't.
I mean, 2023 he got short because of the injury, but in 2022 he eclipsed 1,000.
He did eclipse 1,000. That's my bad. I thought that I thought it was short. I only saw the one season, forgot that one, but his numbers still rapidly declined from the year prior. I'm still sitting there with, I don't know what Christian Kirk's full role is going to be. Is he going to be the number 1? Is he going to take a back seat with Gabe Davis in there now? But as far as like the total depth, I think Indianapolis has better depth at the wide receiver position than what the Jaguars have right now. Brian Thomas, I mean, he's in the same boat. I'd say he probably has a little bit higher potential than Adonai Mitchell just because of we don't know who is going to – I don't know who would compete with him for the number 3 wide receiver position. But as far as that goes, we'd presume that Adonai Mitchell and Brian Thomas would probably lead very similar seasons if Adonai Mitchell ends up being wide receiver 3 by the end of the year. So, yeah, Texans 1, Titans 2, Colts 3, and Jags at 4.
Interesting. Folks, in the comments, let us know if you agree with Derek as we pull up the next list. Now, Mike, I have to tell you, this is not your list, so you're just going to have to defend your boy Rossy here after he ended up submitting this gem to us. This is Titans Rossy's. First off, do you agree with it? And second off, sound off.
Well, I mean, it looks pretty legit right now in my case from what Rossy's going with, so I'll try and give the best representation of what Rossy would think in this instance. So, we'll start with the Texans at number 1. Pretty obvious. Young core right there. Big 3, I think, especially when you look at Diggs, if he can be the Diggs of old and, keep his baby mama and his side piece away from each other, I think they'll be okay. So we'll see how that plays out. But solid wide receiving core right there for the Texans. If they stay healthy, they deservedly need to be number 1. I definitely, too, will keep the Titans at where they are right now, where Rossy has them placed. You have experience there. You call it age. I call it experience. There's a difference. So that being said, I think Will Levis has a nice core of guys that have been there in the league. They understand what they need to do to make their quarterback successful. And I think with a revamped offensive line, especially on the left side, it's going to make life a little bit easier for Will Levis to throw to this core. Plus, you have Treylon Burks still in the fold, trying to find his footing, and Nick Westbrook-Akina, which is kind of a Swiss Army knife wide receiver whenever they need him. Colts at number 3. I definitely like the young core talent. Mitchell is definitely one guy I'm really excited to see play. Pittman's always your old reliable. So if he stays healthy, I think Richardson's got a chance moving forward. And then you look at the Jaguars right there. You've still got Christian Kirk. You've still got Brian Thomas, who I think is going to be just one of those guys that's going to take the league by storm. I think people are really sleeping on him. But, outside of that, I do think it's kind of just a revamped room. I don't think it's a sense that the talent's bad in the room. I just think you're asking a young guy to replace Calvin Ridley and that's going to be a pretty tall order. But I like the fact that he's got an opportunity at really just rattling a couple of cages.
You heard it here first. The Titan Rossy wide receiver room. One quick question. What's the deal with D-Hop now? He's out how long?
D-Hop should be back for week 1 for Chicago.
Beautiful. Good to hear. Good to hear. Moving on. Let's go ahead and pull up this one. Dalton's UCF Jaguar.
Yeah,
Talk to
so
us, man. I notice I have the Jags over the Colts. This is going to be good. Let's
so I mean, I had the Texans at 1. I mean, they have a pair of 1,000-yard receivers with with Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs, right now is probably the best wide receiver in the AFC South. And if he's kept happy, he's a really, really good receiver to have on their end. Nico Collins really emerged last year, and Tank Dell. There really is something magical about when you are able to draft a quarterback, then a round or two later be able to draft like a wide receiver to kind of grow up with them. And there really is a pretty good connection between them two. And Xavier Hutchinson also isn't really a guy to sleep on either. And they have Robert Woods is a pretty solid player, so I have him there. The Titans, I think, like last week when we did the quarterback rankings, I made my grade based on kind of what these guys have done as opposed to really what the ceiling of the guys are. And, with respect to the Titans, they have a lot of really proven wide receivers. The three-headed duo between, D-Hop, Tyler Boyd, and Calvin Ridley, they've done a lot, a lot of stuff between them three. And what they also have combined for 27 years of NFL experience, which is a lot of years. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but nevertheless, lots of experience. Then, you got plenty of 1,000-yard seasons between the three guys. So, I've respected the Titans, and really the wide receiver core there. I got to put them at number 2 over really with the Jaguars and Colts. And almost with the Jaguars and Colts, you can kind of do this like 3A, 3B, because they're kind of in very similar situations. And it is kind of tough when you grade the Jaguars because the Jaguars probably have the best receiving tight end in the AFC South with Evan Ingram, but he's a tight end, so I can't really include him in these rankings. So he's kind of an extension of the pass game for us. But with the Jaguars, Christian Kirk is a really, really reliable receiver out there in a slot. 1,000-yard receiver in 2022. He was on his way to 1,000 yards in 2023 before he missed the final 5 games of the year with his injury. And then the Jaguars bring in Gabe Davis, who the Jaguars really have had a knack of being able to bring receivers in, and they have the best years of their career there. We've seen Christian Kirk as a different wide receiver on the Jaguars than he was at Cardinals. The Jaguars were able to turn around Evan Ingram's career. Zay Jones had a really good year in 2022 when he stayed healthy the full year. And, Gabe Davis is definitely a guy that, he has the tools to be great. It's just for one reason or another, it just hasn't been all put together. And maybe the environment for him might be a little bit better in Jacksonville than a Buffalo, where he commented about, he's from, Orlando. He doesn't really like the cold very much. He wasn't super pumped to get drafted there just because he doesn't like the cold weather that much. So maybe being in Jacksonville and kind of getting a fresh start in a scheme where, they're kind of going to try to use him to his, best traits. And then the Jaguars also have Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm a guy that I have really liked Brian Thomas Jr. And it's not just because he got drafted by the Jaguars, but, he was the guy that I was saying the Jaguars need to draft him. The Jaguars need to draft him because, the Jaguars do finally have that deep threat now. And he had a really good 41-yard catch in the last preseason game. And he's been making a lot of catches over the course of training camp. But, also not only is he a good vertical threat, but, when I was watching preseason all 22, I mean, he was getting a lot of separation running horizontally. The Jaguars finally have a guy where you can throw it to him on a slant route and he can, take it 40, 50, 60 yards just with his speed and what he can do. So, I really like him. And, kind of when you compare it over to, the Colts are kind of in a similar situation where, they had their proven receiver with a Michael Pittman Jr. They also have their rookie with an AD Mitchell. And they've also had guys that have done some good things with an Alec Pierce and, I know they like Josh Downs going into, his second year. So there's, I think with the Colts and, and the Jags. Like, I think me and Derek both had them at 3 and number 4, but I think both of us can say we actually feel good about these receiving cores just because there is a lot of potential there. Like, me putting the Colts at number 4 isn't me saying the Colts wide receiver core sucks. It's just me saying basically Jaguars and Colts are tied, so I'm gonna give the nod to the Jaguars and put them number 3. But with that said, I put Texans at number 1, Titans at number 2, just because you got to respect what they've actually done. But I do actually feel good about both the Jaguars and Colts receiving cores.
Very, very interesting. And last but not least, we have to talk to Ruben for his wide receiver rankings, and they are right here. Ruben, talk to us, man.
I mean, this was a little, tougher than the last one, right? And like Dalton said, it's no disrespect to the Colts wide receiving group. The reason why I gave the nod to the Jaguars is just because you got a couple of veterans in that group. You got Josh Down entering year 2. You got A.D. Mitchell, entering year 1, who I am a big fan of. I think you have a lot of potential at the wide receiver group, and I am a big fan of Michael Pittman. I think he's one of the most underrated guys in the league. With Jacksonville, they got a 1,000-year guy in Calvin Ridley who's been in the league for multiple years. Gabe Davis, right? He had that big post on Instagram how he was number 1 in basically every single big play imaginable. He is trying to be a number 1 guy. And then I am very high on Brian Thomas Jr. Before the Texans traded out of the first round, he was my lock at number 23. It's no shot whatsoever at Indy. They're going to be great, and they're going to, get it rolling once the season hits about week 5 or 6. With Jacksonville, I just gave them a nod in that 3 because they have the veteran lead on you. Number 2, Tennessee, if healthy, D-Hop is one of the best in the NFL. I saw him be one of the best in the NFL here in Houston. Calvin Ridley, 8,000-yard guy last year with Jacksonville. And then they added Tyler Boyd. And with Tyler Boyd, he was someone that I wanted on the Houston Texans as my wide receiver 3. They got him in Tennessee. They surrounded their young quarterback with weapons. That's what you want to see. And, of course, I have the Houston Texans at 1. You can argue all these guys are legit number 1 guys. Nico Collins, 1,297 yards, 8 touchdowns. His breakout year, first time he gets a quarterback who could throw his way. Tank Dell, before he broke his leg in a game against the Jaguars, was on pace for 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. His season was 706 with 8. And then Stephon Diggs, 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. There was a stat that the last time a team had 3 1,000-yard guys was the 2008 Arizona Cardinals with Kurt Warner. And I wonder if the Houston Texans have a shot, to get that with an extra game and with these offenses being air raid. But that's what my list is. I think all these wide receiver groups are really good, and it's going to be a fun battle.
Oh, folks, once again, please do us a favor. Sound off in the comment section and give us your ranked wide receiver core in the AFC South. We always love hearing from each and every single one of you. As a reminder, guys, we are live every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. EST. So subscribe to this channel, turn on those bell notifications, and as always, smash that thumbs up because we have a hell of a season lined up for you. Again, everyone around the table, any last words before we send them off, starting off with Dalton?
Yeah, just excited for just get a little bit closer to the regular season. I know we overanalyze these preseason games. We overreact to it, or at least the people in our comment section do. I know I'm going to keep it even keel, okay? Not going to get too high, not going to get too low. A bunch of Jaguar fans were pumped after the last game, but, let's stay about in the middle of it at all.
What you got, Mike?
We're getting closer to regular season. Football is on its way, bitches. Let's get there.
Wow, look at that. Ruben?
Hey, it's time to withdraw, man. Let's get it going. Derek, we're coming into your crib and taking that with the horse's head.
Last but not least, Derek.
Man, you Texans are in for a rude awakening. I cannot wait.
Oh, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the AFC South Roundtable. We will see you next week, Tuesday, same time, same place. Thank you so much for once again tuning in to another episode powered by BetUS. We'll see you next time.